The phone rang, slicing through the quiet of the nursing home's sleepy afternoon. I picked it up, and the moment I heard that long-forgotten voice, a rush of warmth and sorrow surged through my chest. But before I could say more than a word, Daniel spoke, his voice dry and businesslike. "Mom, I've been tight on cash lately. Do you think you could sell the house under your name? Just to help me out for now." I stood frozen, my gaze drifting past the window to the bare maple tree at the edge of the yard. Its limbs trembled in the wind, not unlike the lonely years I've lived through. Daniel hadn't visited in 2 full years. Not a single phone call. Not a single drop-in. And now the first thing out of his mouth was about the house. Life at the nursing home ran on repeat, like an old cassette stuck in a loop. Wake-up call at 7. Breakfast by 7:30. Group activities at 9. Lunch at 12:30. Afternoons were for TV or cards. Dinner at 5. Wash up at 7. Lights out by 8. Every day exactly the same. No exceptions. I had been living here for 2 full years. And the day I stepped through that front door, I knew it. Daniel had made up his mind to let me go. He hadn't visited me once. Not even a quick call to check in. Whenever I saw other residents reunited with their children, I'd turn my head away. Especially Blanche, who lived in the room across from mine. Her daughter Laura visited every week, always with fresh fruit, pastries, and that curly-haired little grandson of hers who looked like a cartoon sprite. I'd pretend I was just passing by, but I'd always linger for a moment too long. They'd be on the couch, laughing, joking, sometimes doubled over in giggles. And every time, a tightness would rise in my chest and sting my eyes. "Missing your son again, Mrs. Carter?" Megan, one of the young nurses, could always see right through me. I forced a weak smile. "No, just dry eyes. Happens all the time." Then I'd hurry back to my room, hoping she wouldn't ask any more questions. My room was small, just enough space to turn around in. A single bed, a narrow wardrobe, a desk, and a beat-up old television. It was clean and orderly, but it didn't feel like it belonged to anyone. On the wall hung a photo from our 40th anniversary, Thomas and me, grinning like 2 retirees about to enjoy the golden years. That was the last picture we ever took together. 6 months later, he collapsed from a stroke in the kitchen. No warning. No goodbye. After he passed, I lived alone in the house we had spent a lifetime working toward. Every step in that empty home echoed louder than the last. Daniel and his wife Heather had moved to the Upper East Side of New York, said it made work easier. They didn't visit often, but I understood. Young people have their own lives to live. I didn't want to be a burden. Then that winter I slipped in the bathroom and broke my leg. Daniel and Heather looked after me for barely a month before suggesting I move into a care facility. "Mom, it's not safe for you to be home alone anymore. At least here there are people to look after you. We'll feel better knowing you're okay," Daniel had said. I didn't argue. I knew caring for an elderly parent wasn't easy. I didn't want to be the weight that tipped their scales. So I came here. He filled out the paperwork, helped me settle in, then left in a hurry. Said he'd visit often, that work was just hectic. That was over 700 days ago. To be fair, life here wasn't as awful as I'd feared. The nurses were kind, the care was decent, and the food was tolerable. Our days were structured. Board games, crafts, a little physical therapy for aging limbs. I made a few friends, people around my age to pass the time with. It wasn't unbearable. But it was never home. What I missed most was the house Thomas and I had built together. Painted together, cleaned together, watched the sapling in the front yard grow into a tree. That house was our foundation, our proof of a shared life. It held the breakfast he made me every morning. The blanket I knitted for his knees in winter. All our love sealed into its walls. We weren't anybody special. Just factory workers saving every penny. We didn't earn much, but we never wasted a cent. Every month, a little more into the savings account. By the time we finally got the keys to that house, we were already in our 50s. We gave Daniel the master bedroom so he could grow up in comfort. We raised him in peace, without arguments, without bitterness. And he made us proud. He got into one of the top universities in the state. Landed a job with a global firm after graduation. Good pay, great benefits. When he got married, Thomas and I pooled nearly all our savings to help him cover the down payment for his first home. Back then our hearts were full. We felt like every sacrifice we'd ever made had finally been worth it. Our son had a future. Our love had built something lasting. But people change. Hearts can drift. "Mrs. Carter, it's time for your meds." Megan's gentle voice pulled me out of my thoughts like a hand tugging me back from the past. Thank you, Megan. I quickly wiped the corners of my eyes and stood up. Every afternoon around this time, the nurses made their rounds with medication. Megan, barely in her 20s, had the kind of patience you couldn't teach, especially with residents our age. You seem a little off today, Mrs. Carter, she said kindly, handing me my pill box while pouring a glass of water. Feeling a bit homesick? No, I replied with a soft smile. Just didn't sleep too well last night. Feeling a little off, that's all. I took the pills in one gulp, not wanting to linger. Megan hesitated, then said quietly, "Your son hasn't visited in a long time. Would you like me to help you give him a call?" I waved it off. No need. He's busy with work. Don't want to bother him. She sighed softly and didn't push. I knew she meant well, but some wounds only ache more when touched. Back in my room, I returned to my spot by the window. The courtyard outside shimmered under the dappled light filtering through the thick green canopy. A few residents were strolling slowly, some with walkers, others in wheelchairs being gently pushed by staff. They chatted quietly, faces warm in the sun. Life moved here like a song hummed under one's breath. Soft, steady, easy to miss. And then, out of nowhere, Daniel popped into my mind again. I remembered how Thomas and I used to take him to the park every weekend when he was little. He loved the swings, always begged to be pushed higher. His laughter rang like tiny bells in the wind. But somewhere along the way that laughter changed. Maybe it was when he hit middle school and started building his own world. Maybe it was college when the phone calls home slowed to a trickle. Maybe it was after he got married, when his orbit shifted to another woman, a new family. I opened the drawer in my nightstand and took out the old photo album, the only personal item I'd insisted on bringing with me. Page by page I turned through the years. There he was at the pool, grinning through splashes. There he was in his cap and gown, smiling stiffly at his high school graduation. And there he was on his wedding day, standing next to Heather, beaming like he had the whole world in his hands. I stared at those frozen moments, a lump rising in my throat. "Daniel," I whispered, "do you even remember your mother?" Just then my phone rang. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. "Hello." I answered cautiously. "Mom, it's me. Daniel." I froze, heart hammering. My palms turned clammy in an instant. 2 years. This was the first time he'd called. "Daniel. It's really you." I blurted out. "I'm doing well, really well. How about you? Work keeping you busy? Are you taking care of yourself?" The questions tumbled out of me, one after another, desperate, as if his voice might disappear if I didn't fill the silence. "I'm okay, Mom. Just been swamped lately," Daniel said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "You need to take care of your health, sweetheart. Don't overdo it." I hesitated, then added gently, "If you get a chance, maybe come visit? The food here's decent, the place is quiet. I've been doing all right." It was a careful suggestion, but my heart clung to it, hoping he might actually show up. There was a pause on the line. "Mom, I really can't get away right now," he finally said. Then his tone shifted, deeper, hesitant. "Actually, I called because there's something I need to talk to you about." A chill crept over me. "What is it?" I tried to sound calm, but a shadow had already formed in my chest, like a storm cloud thickening just beyond the horizon. "So, I've hit a bit of a financial snag. I was wondering if you could transfer the house to my name. Just for now." He said it so casually, like asking if I felt like grabbing fried chicken tomorrow. I went completely still. 2 years. No calls. No visits. And now his first words to me were about the house? The house Thomas and I saved for our entire lives. The home we built from the ground up in our 50s. The place that held our love, our labor, and the memories I've clung to since he died. And Daniel wanted me to hand it over like it was nothing. "Mom, are you still there?" he asked when I didn't answer. "I'm here." My voice was trembling now. "Daniel, that house, it's all your father and I had after a lifetime of work. It's the only thing I have left. I may be in assisted living now, but who knows what could happen. I need that security." "Mom, you don't need to worry," he cut in a little more urgently. "If the house is in my name, I can use it as collateral to get through this rough patch. Once things smooth out, everything will be fine. I promise I'll take care of you." His words were smooth, but all I could hear was the cold echo of absence. How could I believe he'd take care of me? He hadn't even managed to show up in 2 years. Daniel, this is a lot to take in, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll need some time to think it over. Mom, you're not exactly young anymore, he snapped, the irritation seeping through. What's the point of keeping a house you're not living in? You've got a bed, meals, nurses, you're not missing anything. And I've been covering your expenses. My brow furrowed. I sat up straighter, my voice suddenly firm. No, Daniel. The fees here are paid with my pension and your father's survivor benefits. You haven't paid a dime. Silence. Cold and heavy like frost settling in a room. Then he spoke again, and there was something harder in his tone. Do you not trust me, Mom? I'm your son. I'm not trying to cheat you, I'm out of options. It's not that I don't trust you. I sighed, each word weighing heavier than the last. It's just, this isn't a small thing. I need to think. For how long? He pressed. I don't have much time. I need the money by next week. I closed my eyes, feeling a headache pulse behind them. At least, give me a few days. Another pause. Then, fine. I'll call you in 3 days. And just like that, the line went dead. I sat at the edge of my bed, the phone still clutched in my hand like it had turned to stone. The coldness that rose in my chest wasn't just disappointment. It was something deeper. Something that froze me from the inside out. My son had called. Not to ask how I was. Not to say he missed me. But to see what was left of me to take. He hadn't remembered this number because he cared. He'd remembered it because I still had something he could cash in. The tears came slow, welling until they blurred the frame on the wall. I turned to it, to the photo of Thomas and me, our final anniversary. Thomas, I whispered, my voice cracking, since you've been gone I've tried to be a good mom. I really have. But our son, he sees me as nothing more than an A-team. The next few days felt like my heart had been dropped into a spinning paint tray, every emotion bleeding into the next. Part of me was chilled to the bone by Daniel's words. The house was going to be mine anyway. But another part of me couldn't stop worrying. What if he really was in trouble? What if he truly needed help? After all, he's my son. Mrs. Carter, you haven't been eating much lately, Megan said gently as she knocked and pushed in the lunch cart. I forced a smile. I'm all right. Just a little homesick, I suppose. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Did your son call you again? I nodded without a word. Some things, if you speak them aloud, only deepen the hurt. Sure enough, on the afternoon of the 3rd day my phone rang again. It was Daniel. Mom, have you made a decision? Straight to the point. I gripped the phone a little tighter and took a deep breath. Daniel, I just need to ask you honestly, why do you need this much money all of a sudden? Did something happen with your business? There was a pause, then a vague, dismissive reply. Yeah, some issues came up. I need to free up some cash. His voice lacked any real urgency, as if he were brushing me off. Mom, can we skip the questions? I just need you to tell me, are you going to transfer the house or not? I tried to slow things down to make him see where I was coming from. Daniel, that house is everything your father and I worked for. I'm scared, son. Something happens to me if I get sick or need more care. What then? I'd have nothing left. Mom, come on. You're in a facility. You're fed, housed, taken care of. And that house was going to be mine eventually. What's the difference if you give it to me now or later? He said it so matter-of-factly, like it was just a line item on a checklist. That one sentence, it was going to be mine anyway, cut deeper than anything else. In that moment I couldn't help but wonder. In his eyes, am I still a person? Or just a walking estate waiting to be liquidated? Mom, don't drag this out anymore. Let's just get the paperwork done, he snapped when I didn't respond. His tone had turned sharp, impatient. I bit down hard, steadying my voice. Daniel, I still need more time to think. Fine, he said. 3 more days. But after that, I need a definite answer. And just like last time, he hung up before I could reply. I slowly set the phone down and sank onto the edge of my bed, numb all over. 2 years without a single visit, and now my son, once the pride of my life, sounded no different from a debt collector, pressuring me to hand over the only thing I have left. He hadn't asked how I was. He hadn't even pretended to care. All he wanted was what was under my name. I stared up at the ceiling and the tears began to fall. One by one, silently. I couldn't believe this was the same boy who used to laugh on the swing set and shout, "Higher, Mommy! Higher!" That sweet, giggling voice felt like it belonged to someone else's child now. That night I tossed and turned until morning, sleep never arriving. I weighed everything in my mind over and over again. If I gave him the house, I'd be surrendering my last safety net. But if I didn't, would he do something reckless? Would he cut me off completely? Would he hate me? The next morning, just as I'd finished getting dressed and was about to step outside for some air, my phone rang again. This time it was Heather. "Hi, Evelyn. How are you feeling these days?" Her voice was bright and breezy as if she were calling with holiday wishes. "I'm fine," I replied curtly. "Just a little back pain lately." "Oh no, you really have to take care of yourself," she chirped, then without missing a beat shifted gears. "So, about what Daniel mentioned yesterday, the house? Have you had a chance to think it over?" I didn't answer her question. Instead, I cut straight to mine. "Heather, what's really going on? Why are you suddenly so desperate for the house?" There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice dropped low, shaky, almost tearful. "Evelyn, I'll be honest with you. Daniel got into some bad investments, and we're in a lot of debt. It's bad. There are people outside our building every day. We're afraid to go home." My brow furrowed, heart sinking. Investment losses? Debt collectors? This was far more serious than what Daniel had let on. "How much do you owe?" I asked, my voice tight. She inhaled sharply and then came the number. "About 300,000. I felt a chill snake through my chest. 300,000. That was nearly the full value of the house. How did it get this bad? I could barely keep my voice steady as my mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Heather's voice quivered as she explained. Daniel was doing futures trading. He made a little money at first, then the market crashed and he lost everything. He borrowed more to cover the losses, from loan sharks. Now they're banging on our door every day. We don't even feel safe sleeping there." My head buzzed like a struck gong. "And where are you staying now?" "At a friend's place," she murmured. "In their guest room. Evelyn, please, we're begging you. If you sign over the house, Daniel can use it as collateral to get a loan, pay off the debt and stabilize things. We promise once this is over we'll repay you. We'll make sure you have the best care. Truly." I sat there in silence, the weight of it all pressing down like wet cement. If what she was saying was true, this was a crisis. But if I handed over the house, what did I have left? I was an old woman. My body ached, my balance was shaky, my future uncertain. That house was my last safety net. Without it, who would catch me? "Can you really pay me back?" It was the question I dreaded most, and the one I needed answered. "Of course we will," Heather said quickly, her tone urgent, bordering on frantic. "You're Daniel's mother, he'd never lie to you. Just help us through this and we'll take care of you, I swear. We'll get you the best nurses, everything you need." I leaned against the wall, eyes drifting to the window. Out on the lawn, a couple of squirrels darted across the grass, chasing each other up a tree. And suddenly I felt this deep ache, not for the money or the house, but to simply see my son. Just once. Just to look at his face. "Could you come see me?" I asked softly. "It's been 2 years. I haven't seen either of you in 2 years." Heather hesitated. I could feel the pause stretch. "Evelyn, we really want to, but right now everything's upside down. Once we've handled this situation, we'll absolutely come visit. But please, can we just take care of the house first?" I didn't budge. "I still need a little more time to think." Heather's voice sharpened. "Mom, this isn't the time to think. We're out of time. These people are dangerous. Every minute we wait could cost us everything." But I wasn't shaken. I kept my voice steady. "I understand. I'll get back to you soon." There was a pause on her end and then, barely masking her frustration, she said, "All right. We'll be waiting for your good news." And the line went dead. I set the phone down and slumped into my chair. The longer I sat there, the heavier everything felt. Was Daniel truly drowning in debt? Or had they crafted an entire performance just to make me give in? I couldn't carry the weight of it alone anymore. So I decided to talk to Blanche, the one person here I truly trusted. Her daughter was a lawyer too. Maybe between her wisdom and her daughter's expertise, I could find some clarity. I knocked gently on her door. "Blanche, can I talk to you for a bit?" She opened it and immediately pulled me inside the moment she saw my face. "Evelyn, sit down. What happened?" I sat on the edge of her armchair and told her everything, Every call, every word, every knot that had twisted tighter in my chest over the past few days. Her expression grew darker as I spoke. Evelyn, this doesn't sound good, she said bluntly. Your son hasn't spoken to you in 2 years, and now the first thing out of his mouth is asking for your house? I hate to say it, but it smells like manipulation. You think they're lying? I asked, my voice thin and shaking. I'm not saying they made it all up, but I'd bet good money the debt isn't as bad as they're claiming. They're banking on you folding under pressure and handing over your last piece of security. Blanche never sugarcoated things, and in that moment I was glad for it. I felt like I'd been dropped into a tub of ice water. What should I do? I don't want to push him over the edge, but I can't give up everything either. My daughter's coming by this afternoon, she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'll ask her to sit down with you. She's sharp and she'll give you the legal side of things. Just hang in there. Thank you, I said from the bottom of my heart. That evening, Blanche's daughter Laura did come. She wore a tailored blazer and carried a tablet, looking every bit the kind of woman who didn't waste words. She sat across from me, listened patiently as I explained the entire situation, then nodded. First of all, Mrs. Carter, she said firmly, the house is in your name. It's your legal property. As long as you're of sound mind and body, no one can force you to transfer ownership. Not your son, not a creditor, no one. I nodded slowly. But what if he tries to apply for guardianship? If he gets that, couldn't he access everything? Laura shook her head at once. That's not how it works. Guardianship is for individuals who are mentally incapacitated or unable to care for themselves. You are living independently, lucid, and physically stable. No court would ever approve that petition. I exhaled a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. That's been my biggest fear, I confessed. That if I say no, he'll find some legal way around me. He can't, she said firmly. He would have to prove in court that you're mentally unfit and incapable of managing your affairs. And clearly that's not the case. Her words settled into me like a stone finally finding the bottom of a well. My advice, she continued, don't leave the door open an inch. Be clear. If you want to offer to help with a small amount, fine. But under no circumstance should you sign over that house. That's your foundation. And if he keeps pushing? If he threatens me? I asked. Laura didn't hesitate. Refuse. If he becomes aggressive or makes threats, call the police immediately. I nodded. The pain in my chest hadn't gone away, but the fear was finally retreating. Yes, it hurt, deeply, that my son had come to me not out of love but need. But I couldn't let that pain blind me into giving away everything I had left. 3 days later, right on cue, Daniel called again. Mom, have you made a decision? Same tone, same bluntness, straight to the point. I took a deep breath. Daniel, I want to see you in person. Let's talk face to face. Mom, I'm really busy. I don't have time to go all the way to the nursing home. Just tell me straight, are you going to transfer the house or not? His voice was cool, dismissive. He clearly had no interest in a visit. My tone hardened. If you can't even spare time to look me in the eye, then I have absolutely no reason to hand over my house. There was a long silence on the other end, and then, as if it pained him to say it, he muttered, Fine. I'll come tomorrow afternoon. True to his word, Daniel showed up the next day. He looked worse than I remembered, thinner, dark circles under his eyes, skin sallow and tight over his cheekbones. It was clear life hadn't been kind to him. Mom, he said stiffly from the doorway. Daniel. I swallowed the ache in my throat and gestured for him to sit. I don't have a lot of time, so let's get to the point, he said, perching on the edge of the chair like he was ready to bolt. Have you made up your mind? About the house. I looked at him squarely and asked, I heard you're in serious debt. Is that true? His eyebrow twitched, but he nodded quickly. Yeah. I made some bad investments. Took a big hit. It's bad, about 300 grand. We're basically squatting at a friend's place now. Kept my gaze steady. Then tell me something, Daniel. Why didn't you come see me these past 2 years? Not even a phone call. His eyes darted to the side and he cleared his throat. The work's been nonstop. Things got hectic. Hectic enough to make you forget you have a mother? My voice cracked slightly. He didn't answer. Just lowered his head and gave a weak shake. I swallowed hard, keeping my emotions in check. Daniel, I understand you're here because you're desperate. But you need to understand something too. I have nothing left to lose. I can't give away my last lifeline. I can't give away my safety net. Mom, don't say that, he said, softening his tone. I'm just asking to use it for now. Once things get better, I'll take care of you. I promise. There it was again, the promise without the apology. No remorse for the silence. No acknowledgement of the hurt. I'm willing to help with a portion of your debt, I said slowly, deliberately. But I won't give you the house. His face tightened instantly. What? You won't? Why not? Because that house is everything your father and I worked for. I held his gaze. At my age, I don't get a second shot. If I get sick or something happens, that house is my security. It's my future. I will take care of you. Why don't you believe that? He snapped, his frustration rising. I let out a bitter chuckle. You mean like you've taken care of me for the past 2 years? His face fell visibly sharply. The room went quiet. Mom, are you blaming me? His voice jumped, sharp and defensive. I nodded slowly. Not blaming, just telling the truth. I believe you're my son. But I believe even more that at my age, safety means keeping the keys to my own life in my own hands. God, Mom, you're so selfish. Daniel suddenly burst out, his voice rising with frustration. I'm drowning here and you can't even help me this once? I didn't flinch at his anger. I kept my voice steady, calm. I told you already, I can help you with some money. But the house? Absolutely not. He stared at me, eyes narrowed. How much? 50,000, I said quietly but firmly. He blinked, stunned. Then he slapped his knee hard and barked a humorless laugh, angry, unraveling. 50 grand? That's nothing. I owe 300. That's all I can manage, I replied, unwavering. I live off my pension and your father's survivor benefits. 50,000 is my limit. It's not a gesture, it's a stretch. He was trembling now, barely containing himself. You don't even see me as your son anymore, do you? He snapped. I'm at rock bottom and you just sit back and watch me rot? Daniel, I'm not letting you rot. I inhaled slowly, keeping my tone even. If you're really in crisis, 50,000 is real help. But the way you came in, demanding the house, it felt like you were carving a piece out of me. Did it ever occur to you how little I have left to lose? He shot up from the chair like a spring. I don't want your scraps, he shouted. I want the house. That house is worth 300 grand. It's everything I need to fix this. You could help me, really help me, but you just won't. I stood my ground, staring him down. No. That house is your father's and mine. It's our life's work. It's the only safety I have left. If you won't take the money, then I can't help you. His face turned a shade I'd never seen on him, ashen with rage. In his eyes I saw something terrifying, not just anger but humiliation and threat. He clenched his jaw, voice dropping to a growl. Don't push me, Mom. If you're going to be this stubborn, don't blame me for what happens next. My heart skipped. I gripped the arms of my chair to steady myself. What are you talking about? I asked, raising my voice slightly. I'm your mother. He didn't answer. Just stared at me with a look so cold, so foreign I barely recognized him. A few tense seconds passed. Then he turned sharply, yanked the door open so hard I thought it might come off the hinges. You'll regret this, he spat without even looking back. And just like that he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway until they disappeared. The door slammed behind him with a violent bang, and the silence that followed felt thick, unnatural. I sat there, frozen on the edge of the bed, fingers like ice, chest caved in with the weight of it all. The moment he walked out, the strength drained right out of me. I collapsed back into the mattress like a balloon slowly deflating, limbs heavy, breath short. The door hung half open, but I didn't have the will to close it. I couldn't even remember if I'd slept that night. My mind was a foggy mess, looping the same words over and over again. Don't blame me for what happens next. That one line hung in the air like a blade, invisible and poised, ready to fall. The next morning, Megan pushed open the door with my breakfast tray and froze. Mrs. Carter, did you not sleep last night? Look, unwell. Should I get the nurse? I shook my head slowly. I need a favor, I murmured. Can you help me make a phone call? 10 minutes later, I was seated in the corner of the activity room with a phone pressed to my ear. Laura's calm voice came through on the other end. Are you okay? I need to do something, I said, my voice low and deliberate. I can't just sit here and let my son back me into a corner. Laura didn't hesitate. I understand. Then let's take 2 immediate steps. 1, we'll establish a protective trust for the property. 2, we'll freeze any transfer or authorization on the house. That's the safest way to secure your rights. Later that morning, she took me to the bank that worked with the nursing home. The branch manager and a notary guided me through the process. We transferred my accounts, froze any transfer rights, and revoked every prior authorization linked to Daniel's name. You're protected now, Laura said softly as we left. From today on, no one touches that house. Not a brick, not a blade of grass without your consent. I nodded and something sharp and clean passed through my chest. It wasn't pain. It was clarity. By the time we returned to the facility, my legs were trembling but my spine was straight. Blanche spotted me from the windowside table in the dining hall and hurried over. You went to the bank? She asked, eyes gleaming. Good for you, Evelyn. That was exactly the right move. I gave her a wry smile. I used to think endurance was a mother's virtue. But now I know, if you don't defend your line, it will swallow you whole. That evening, Megan brought my dinner and leaned in with a quiet voice. Mrs. Carter, someone called the front desk earlier. Said they'll be visiting you tomorrow. The name they gave was Daniel Carter. I nodded. No surprise there. This time I would be ready. Daniel arrived the next afternoon, right on schedule. But he wasn't empty-handed. He carried a bag of fruit and a manila folder labeled Family Authorization Agreement. When Megan called to let me know he was at the front desk, her voice was hesitant. Mrs. Carter, your son's here. He says he's here to visit, but he's not in the best mood. Let him in, I said calmly. The door creaked open. Daniel stood there in a wrinkled suit holding a bouquet of flowers, looking for all the world like someone trying to play pitiful and presentable at the same time. Mom, he said with a tight smile. I thought about yesterday. Things got too tense. I see now I was wrong. I should have come to see you more. Daniel, I said gently, gesturing to the chair. Sit down. He set the flowers on the table and placed the file in front of me. I had a friend help me draw up a simple family property agreement. Nothing complicated, just something that gives me authorization to use the house as collateral. It won't affect your living rights at all. He tried to sound calm, even reasonable. But his eyes betrayed him, darting, restless, too hungry for a yes. I didn't touch the file. I've retained legal counsel, I said softly. The house is now in a trust. The assets are frozen. Any transfer must go through legal review. That document, I nodded at the folder, has no legal standing. The smile vanished from his face. What are you saying? He asked, voice low, words clipped. You're going to take me to court? This isn't a lawsuit, Daniel, I replied as I stood. My voice was steady, cold with purpose. It's called self-protection. I'm at the age where I'm your son isn't enough to make me gamble away everything I've got left. He stood, 2 eyes flaring. You've been brainwashed. Was it Blanche? That damn lawyer. No one put this in my head, I said. It was your silence these past 2 years that taught me everything I needed to know. His face darkened. You really think you can stop me? You think this is over? He turned to go, but I stopped him. Daniel. He froze. If you don't want this to get uglier, don't try again. He didn't look back. Mom, don't push me, he growled. I sighed. I didn't push you. You walked yourself here. He stormed out, the door rattling violently behind him. The metal handle clanged so loud it startled 2 elderly residents in the hallway. As soon as the door slammed, I pressed the discreet little button Megan had installed beneath my nightstand. The audio recorder clicked on. Everything, his threats, the offer, the shouting, had been captured. 15 minutes later, Laura arrived with the facility manager. I handed over the recording and the so-called family agreement. If he shows up again, Laura said as she flipped through the pages, her lip curling in disdain, we'll file for a restraining order. This isn't just an invalid contract, it's coercion. I nodded. I don't want to drag him into court. But I won't let him touch another cent. That night, Blanche poured us both a cup of red tea in the common room. She lifted hers with a grin. Now you're finally living like a woman who knows her worth. We smiled at each other. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I could breathe. Laura, true to her word, didn't hesitate. 3 days later, she personally filed a preliminary notice of restraining order with the nursing home administration, placing it securely in their records. If he tries to enter the premises again or contacts you in any way, she told me, her tone firm, we call the police. No more warnings. I nodded, and for the first time I understood. Real safety doesn't come from backing down. It comes from drawing your line and refusing to let anyone cross it. That afternoon, Blanche was sitting by my window sewing a missing button on my cardigan. He paused mid-stitch, thoughtful. Evelyn, she said slowly, have you ever thought about telling your story? Out loud, I mean. To more than just me. I blinked. You mean, the other residents? No, she said, setting down the needle and thread. Her eyes were serious. I mean the whole city. Your story isn't just yours. It's ours. Every woman our age who's been used, overlooked, or left behind. You have a voice now. Use it. Laura nodded beside her. I know a few local radio hosts, even some social media platforms with outreach to older audiences. If you're willing, we can keep your name private, but your story, it could help a lot of people. I didn't give an answer that day. But I didn't sleep that night. And the next morning I said yes. A week later, I sat in the nursing home's meeting room facing a microphone. The host was a woman in her 40s, warm, patient, and gently spoken. She didn't interrupt me once. She just listened as I told my story, from the phone call that broke 2 years of silence to the confrontation with a son I barely recognized anymore. I spoke quietly, but every word landed like a hammer. He's my son. I never stopped loving him. But love doesn't mean handing over your life. We women, we spend our youth giving to everyone else. Then we get old and we're called a burden. And just when we think we've earned peace, they come for the last thing we have left, our security. When the recording was over, I returned to my room and thought it would end there. But 2 days later, the whole nursing home was buzzing. Did you hear? Evelyn's the one from that podcast. God, her son is a monster. My daughter said that episode's already gone viral. Over 100,000 plays. Megan burst into my room, cheeks flushed with excitement. Mrs. Carter, you're famous. The local senior advocacy network wants you as a guest consultant. I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't know sharing my story could turn into a media event. But the real shock came the next day, when Blanche rushed into the activity room, practically dragging me by the sleeve. You're not going to believe this, she whispered. One of the visitors here, middle-aged lady, nice coat, basket of flowers, was talking about your son. Apparently she used to work for Daniel. And while chatting with another resident, she'd casually said, I worked at Daniel Carter's firm a few years ago. He was always shady. False reports, fake invoices. That Heather, he was in on it too. She helped him get those bogus bank loans. By evening, the whole nursing home had heard. Laura moved quickly. She submitted formal requests to financial compliance offices and credit bureaus for public records. Within a week, she handed me a thick file. Inside, Daniel's history of applying for high-risk short-term business loans. Heather's name tied to a falsified POS financing application. 3 rejected mortgage applications, each citing unverifiable collateral. Laura laid the file on my desk and looked me in the eye. Your house. That was their final card to play. If you'd signed, they would have flipped it within the month. I stared at the documents, fingers numb, heart cold. He didn't just want a loan. He wanted to cash out my entire life. That night, I signed the official request for a no-contact protective order against both Daniel and Heather. 4 days later, I received the court's confirmation. Effective immediately, Daniel Carter and Heather Morris were legally barred from coming within 500 feet of me or the facility, and forbidden from initiating any form of communication. I felt no joy. Only a long-delayed stillness. The kind that comes not from winning but from finally being left alone. It came too late. But it came solid. After Laura organized all the legal documents, she turned to me and said, the next step is up to you. If you want, I can draft a formal statement of disaffiliation. I nodded. Write it. I owed him nothing anymore. That day, I wore the deep navy blue coat I bought after Thomas passed, the first piece of clothing I had purchased just for myself. Megan helped style my hair. Blanche walked me to the activity room where a few reporters were already waiting. I didn't hide my name. I didn't blur my face. I wanted the world to know who I was. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 70 years old. I am a mother, and a woman who, in her later years, was nearly robbed of her home. There were no tears, no rage. Just my voice, calm, unwavering, as I laid out the years of silence and heartbreak. I spoke of the woman who had been treated like an ATM, and the moment she finally stood up and took it all back. The interview aired and exploded across the community. The TV station received thousands of messages, letters, emails, voice notes. Many came from women just like me. One said, "I never dared say no to my son. You helped me realize that's not love, it's fear." Another wrote, "Thank you for speaking up. You gave me permission to stop turning love into sacrifice." The nursing home got a call from the local Senior Rights Coalition. They wanted to collaborate on creating a support group, Late Life Protection Circle, with me as a founding advisor. Blanche teased me that night. "You're our lighthouse now, Evelyn." I smiled. "I'm not a lighthouse," I said quietly. "I've just been quiet too long. It's time I started speaking." Laura suggested something else. "Remember that $50,000 you planned to give Daniel? What if we used it to start a legal fund for seniors in situations like yours?" I paused. The idea settled in my chest like something solid and right. "Yes," I said. "Let his greed fund someone else's dignity. That's far more useful than putting it in his hands." And so the Evelyn Grant was born. 3 weeks later, I received a letter from Daniel's attorney. He was attempting to appeal the trust and challenge my mental competence, aiming to regain access to the property. The court dismissed the case that very afternoon. The reason was brief and resolute. The petitioner's claims are unsubstantiated and appear to be motivated by clear financial intent. I signed the court response with a steady hand. No tremble. No second-guessing. I never expected to start over at 70. But I did. Not by marrying again. Not by moving into a better home. But by finally gaining something I had never truly possessed. A voice. Within the first month of launching the Evelyn Grant, we received over 100 letters. Some were from women trapped in homes that had been signed away to their children. Others were from single elders, emotionally manipulated and verbally abused by daughters-in-law, with no proof and no recourse. I couldn't manage every case personally, but I replied to every letter. Laura organized a volunteer legal team. Blanche helped screen the cases. I reviewed and signed the funding approvals. I had never been this busy in my life. And I had never felt so grounded. Every dollar went toward protecting her. Her meaning all of us. And I didn't stop there. I was invited to speak at a city council hearing on financial abuse against elderly women. Standing at the podium, I shared how love can be twisted into leverage, how "you owe me" becomes a weapon. I said, "You cannot hand over everything just because your child asks. That's not compassion. That's surrender." There was a round of applause. And in the back row, I saw a few young women wiping their eyes. They weren't crying for me. They were crying for their mothers. That night, back at the nursing home, Megan handed me a postcard. It was from Nebraska. A woman I'd never met had written, "I saw your story. You helped us understand saying no is not betrayal. Keeping something for yourself is a way of staying alive." I pinned the card to the wall above my desk, right next to the photo of Thomas. From that day on, I began writing my will. Not the legal document. I'd already taken care of that. But a letter. A public letter. My name is Evelyn Carter. I have a son who once tried to trade emotional guilt for my life savings. I don't hate him. But I refuse to surrender my dignity and my rights in the name of blood. From this moment forward, everything I own will belong not to family ties, but to trust and to value. If you're going through what I did, remember this. You are not their ATM. You are your own person. That letter was printed on the very first cover of the Silver Rights Club's monthly journal. Yes, we started a publication. We called it Granny's Voice. Blanche came up with the name. He said it sounded like an old blues song. Every issue featured one elder telling her story of awakening. We shared legal resources, mental health strategies, and a full-page column called "Saying No is Right." We began in a borrowed meeting room. Later, with support from the city, we rented a red brick building downtown. We turned it into something real. A cozy reading nook, a legal hotline office, and a little kitchen we named Slow Brew Cafe, where tea was always free for women seeking advice, or just a quiet place to sit. I woke up every morning at 6. Took a few careful steps with my cane to that red brick building. I sorted letters. Signed approvals. I didn't have time to grow old. As for Daniel, I only heard about him once more in a reporter's brief mention. His company had come under investigation for tax fraud. Heather had filed for divorce. Both were now deep in debt. He never came back. And I didn't wait for him. I didn't hate him. I simply laid that part of my life down, gently, like folding a worn-out coat and placing it in the quietest drawer. The day our story reached its 100th chapter, the nursing home hosted a spring fair. I wore the sky-blue dress Blanche picked out for me. We set up a table in the garden, selling copies of our Granny's Voice 100th issue. A young reporter approached me and asked, "Mrs. Carter, what do you most hope people learn from your story?" I smiled. I hope they learn how to say no. And then I hope they learn how to say, "I deserve to start over." The sunlight rested gently on my white hair. And in the breeze I heard it, soft chirp. It was Thomas's voice, carried by the wind. "You did good."